But
If
it turns out she was right and everybody else was wrong, because she received so much backlash for that, such a pounding for it.
That was cancel culture before cancel culture was
yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, that was cancel. Hey everybody, this is TJR.
And this is Superfan.
And we're going to discuss Sinead O'Connor. This afternoon, or I think it was this morning, you shared a story over to me telling just basically about her passing. 56 years old, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. And let's first of all, full disclosure, my experience with Sinead O'Connor and her music is, I would describe as cursory at best. You, however, have always been a big fan.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the early albums. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I haven't really listened to the later albums.
Mm-hmm. But you, so I know that you wanted to discuss her passing. I've noticed that they've said the cause of death is not known yet. We've always said that's not really important, but somehow I think there has been some sort of implication by some of the stories I've seen that
the first article that I read kind of implied that she committed suicide.
But they didn't put it in the headline, but they implied it.
And ultimately it doesn't really matter.
I know. No, I'm not saying that it does. I just know that whenever it's made public that an artist has committed suicide, that there's always people who, how shall I say it? They become really awful because they'll say things like they were weak, and I've never judged anybody who takes their life because I have no idea what kind of pain they walked through, what kind of pain they lived. And in some cases we have found out, like Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
Who, it came out that he committed suicide and there was a lot of criticism about it. And then it was discovered that the medications that he took could have contributed to that state of mind. Same thing with Robin Williams, that the medications he was taking at the time were contributing to a sense of paranoia. And
and his medical condition in general.
Yeah. And I only bring it up for that reason, simply because there are always people who will be extremely critical of this.
Well,
and I always say, don't judge another human being until you've walked in their shoes in regards to that.
She had an incredibly difficult life.
Yeah.
And she wasn't weak, or she wouldn't have survived even the making of her first album.
Yeah. Let me ask you, how did you first become aware of her music? What was your first?
Well, I had heard that The Edge did a soundtrack for a movie called Captive.
Uh-huh.
And there was a 12-inch single that was released that came into the store that I was working at. And I played it, and it was a song that Sinead O'Connor and The Edge had written together.
Uh-huh.
And her vocal was amazing. And that was definitely 80s, maybe 85, 86.
Mm-hmm. And then, so that was how you first became aware of her music?
That's how I first became aware of her music.
Uh-huh.
Didn't have the technology then that we do now. And I couldn't really find out when her album was coming out.
Uh-huh.
I knew about it a couple months before. Mm-hmm. And was waiting.
Yeah.
Had been waiting since I heard that single.
To hear her first release. And now what was the name of that album?
The Lion and the Cobra.
What were your thoughts on that album?
I love that album.
Yeah.
Well, I had it on vinyl and I taped it onto a cassette. I mainly played it in the car and it was on constantly.
I know you. Yeah, I know you've been a big fan because you've talked to her about her numerous times. And my exposure to her music has been through you. And as I've said on previous videos, Superfan and I, there are areas where we're kind of like the same things, but we have a lot of musical. We have a lot of musical differences between each other. Same thing with Robert, who I collaborate with on videos. I think I like
that's
working.
true of anybody who
Yeah,
likes
yeah.
music.
Well, I like living with friction, and
Here, I thought you liked living with me.
that too. Um, so you were mentioning just that she had a difficult life. I understand, of course, that she made her first album. How old was she when her first album came out? I think you said she was like 18 or something.
I think she was 19, or when it was released.
Yeah.
20,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
She was young, very young.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the time that she recorded her album, they were kind of trying to pigeonhole her into the Pop Tart role. They brought in, I know in interviews at the time, and like I said, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But they brought in producers. They had ideas of what they wanted her to be, and
she would have none of it.
She would have none of it. She co-wrote all the songs. She produced the album herself while she was pregnant.
Yeah, she was a very young mother.
And it was an unplanned pregnancy with the guitar player for her band.
Wow.
And she was very vocal about her family and it being dysfunctional, incredibly dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother was abusive. She was abused in different ways, I think, by the Catholic Church. Ireland is not known for the kindness of
anybody who speaks out against the Catholic Church.
Or
was not known for it at that time.
The Catholic Church was not known for their kindness in Ireland.
I see.
And I will say that a lot of that knowledge comes from what I've heard about Sinead O'Connor, but there have been other stories too. It's not an unknown thing.
That comes from you reading about her experiences. So while we're on this, of course, most people know about the infamous, since you brought up the Catholic Church, and I was raised Catholic, by the way. You were not, but I was. We should bring up, of course, the infamous SNL episode from the 90s, I think it was.
92. The Pope picture.
Yeah, the whole Pope picture incident, where she tore the picture of the Pope. She tore it in half at the end of a performance. And I think she made some comment about, we have to fight the real evil. And she showed the picture of the Pope and she tore it in half. And of course, there was a huge backlash against her.
Yeah.
At the time that happened, like I said, I was raised Catholic, but I wasn't offended by it. I was puzzled. And I wasn't a practicing Catholic at that point anymore. I still not. But I was puzzled by it. But of course, as it's turned out now, it was some years later that it became that the story broke of decades.
Yeah.
And decades of sexual abuse by the Catholic Church throughout the world and cover-ups. And when that finally, I think it was the Boston Globe that broke the story. I'm not 100% correct on that. If I'm wrong, sorry. We're just having a conversation here, folks. But we appreciate any correction you want to give here. It helps. But it turns out she was right and everybody else was wrong, because she received so much backlash for that, such a pounding for it.
That was cancel culture before cancel culture was.
That's a good example. Yeah, that was cancel culture. Yeah, basically before it existed. She was just so roundly trounced. And to me at the time, like I said, I was raised Catholic. I didn't have anything against the Catholic Church at that time. I just wasn't a practicing Catholic anymore. But it was like, hey, that's her opinion. That's her thoughts. We don't have to lose our minds over this. If you're strong in your beliefs and your opinions, it doesn't matter what someone else says. And she was just stating what she felt. But of course, it turns out now that she was right and all the naysayers were wrong. But at any rate, though, when I first heard this news, I remember I just felt very sad, even though I really wasn't as into her music as you were. I felt sad because I understood that she led this very troubled life. And it seemed very sad to me that she would have to die so young. and especially if it was suicide, if that's
Yeah.
what it turns out to be. But it's kind of like nebulous right now. It's weird. I've read other news reports, and they're kind of being very guarded in the wording that they're using. No one is saying passed away in any of the articles I've read. It's like there's this uncertainty as to how it's being reported right now. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but
Ultimately, it doesn't matter.
no, I guess it doesn't. I mean, it does to a certain extent because I think it's important to understand the life
Yeah.
of a music artist and what happened, but yeah, apparently, I think I want you remember you saying something about that there was something about her confrontation with Prince, who was responsible for writing one of her that really huge hit single that she had. That's probably one of the few things I knew about her before we started living together.
Yeah.
Um,
Nothing compares to you. That
Yeah.
was off the second album,
yeah,
which we have here.
yeah, and but I think there was even like a situation, like there was a confrontation between her and Prince or something like that.
Yeah, she talked about being summoned to Prince's home.
Summoned, okay. I guess Prince summons people.
Yeah.
Yeah. He can't just ask people to come over.
I believe how she described it.
Yeah, yeah.
And that he berated her for cussing in interviews, which he didn't approve of.
That sounds like Prince. I remember the filmmaker Kevin Smith describing a conversation with Prince where he did the same thing.
Well, her reaction was what you would typically expect from a strong Irish person.
We should mention you're Irish too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you relate.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said F off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean.
And allegedly, the initial reporting that she said,
yeah,
she reported to a magazine was in an interview was that he physically assaulted her.
Uh-huh.
Now, whether that's true or not, she kind of pulled back on that later.
I also know she lost her son
recently.
One of her sons recently, her youngest, which has got to be hard on any mother. I have a sibling who lost a child. It sounds like, it feels like just a deeply conflicted, a life with a lot of conflict and with a lot of pain in it. But
yeah.
Is there anything just that you would recommend as far as music to anybody that maybe only, because I think a lot of people, then this would describe me. All they would know is, oh yeah, she did that song, Nothing Compares to You, and she's the girl who tore up the Pope's picture. That's kind of the two main things
she's known for. Yeah.
Yeah. If I turn on the news, that's probably what they're going to bring up, because that seems to be the two main things that she's known for by people who don't know her music, which, once again, full disclosure, I would be one of them. Is there anything you'd recommend?
I would recommend the first two albums.
Uh-huh.
I'm
not, The Lion and the Cobra. It's called
The Lion and the Cobra,
and this one right here, I Do Not Want What I Have Not Got.
Yes.
Yeah, and that title is I would say that title is even though I don't know her music that well, that title is a good word of wisdom. I do not want what I have not got. I've often said, yeah, I don't worry about what I don't have. Well, sometimes I do. But I've tried to live by that, not to worry about what you don't have. I think we all spend too much time worrying about that. So one other thing I would... So you'd recommend that album, the first one, Lion and the Cobra, and I should listen to it, because I honestly... maybe I have heard it, because, just like you've heard music that you're not into, that I play all the time, you know it just through association. Yeah. Maybe I need to refamiliarize myself with it. One other thing I will bring up is that before we shot this, one of your friends, who was also a fan, sent you a link to a song by Chris Christopherson.
Yes.
A song that he wrote for Sinead O'Connor.
Called Sister Sinead, and it's amazing.
So yeah, we listened to it, and it was a really good song. Really, really good song. A simple folk song with extremely simple yet very effective lyrics. And he's basically singing. And I do remember there was a performance not too long after the Pope incident where she got up on stage and she was being booed by the audience for tearing up the Pope's picture. and Chris Christopherson came out there and basically comforted her. And the song he wrote feels like somebody who understood her.
Definitely.
And it was a really, really effective song.
It was beautiful.
And if you're one of those who says, "Oh, I can't," I just couldn't listen to her because of what she did or whatever, I would recommend at least listening to that song by Chris Christopherson. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we finish this video?
One of the greatest concert experiences I had was seeing her at the Will Turn, in conjunction with The Lion and the Cobra release. It was an amazing performance, and it's just sad that it's come to this end. Yeah, and I'm just sad that the meet and greet that was supposed to happen that evening did not happen,
Because
her baby was sick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Tough to be a recording artist, a touring artist, and be a mother at that young of an age. But that's where her priority was.
With her baby.
Yeah, well, but that's good. That's where her priority was.
Yeah.
It was with her child. Yeah, something important to remember.
It was disappointing, but at the same time, it's,
her priorities were in the right place. Anyways, Superfan, thanks for just sharing your thoughts. I know that it was upsetting for you because you've been a fan of hers for quite some time. Anybody else out there watching that would like to just share any personal thoughts
or
experiences, any recommendations as far as music, please leave a comment and let us all know. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. We hope you all stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.